transcript on for some reason. Transcript. There we go. So, good evening. Today we are hosting Taz Aldeek. Thank you ever so much for joining us as well, Taz. I'm just going to briefly introduce Taz, and then if you need to add anything on, please do. So, you are currently a criminal barrister at the Crown Prosecution Service. You studied law with criminology at the University of Sheffield, if I'm correct. I could be wrong in that one. And you also, it's difficult because what I've read, it says you have the 2 LLMs, but I'm assuming is that one from the bar course, and then the other one is the corporate and commercial law masters that you did. Yeah. And you worked at a commercial law firm. I can't say, is it Adel?
Yeah.
That's the one. And yes, and also a witness service volunteer at Manchester Crown Court, was it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and also a little bit of backpacking as well around Asia and Australia.
Well, that rarely gets mentioned, actually. I was surprised when I saw you bring that up on an email. I was like, where have you got that from? But yeah, that rarely gets brought up. But yeah, that's kind of one of my highlights of what I've done today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it, I apologise if I seem distracted, I'm just letting other people in. Was it an experience going in and managing to go and see parts of the world?
Definitely. I think when I did it, I already had my offer at uni, and I kicked that offer to the curb for a year, deferred it, because me and my best mate, always had a pact that we would go traveling together. So I finished, packed the bags, flew out. I was 18 at the time, 17, 18. And just met him in Australia, basically, and it was just met him in I think March time, and I think February, March time, and basically did around seven-ish months, 8 months in total. The split between Sydney. I was based in Sydney. I was living in a beautiful northern beach called Manly. And it's just a completely different world. As you know, a kid from Manchester, used to the cloud and the rain. Now I'm living in Sydney, sunshine all the time, having a great time, working in Sydney for just to raise the money to then go and do the East Coast, because you get to Sydney, your money evaporates quite quickly. I'd saved up money from working in a bar back home. And then, it was working for GBK at the time, Gourmet Bird Kitchen. And then I left there, arrived, money went pretty quick. And then I just took a few different jobs in Sydney while I was saving up the money to the East Coast, travelled that. And then I went from there to Southeast Asia, where I did the rest of the trip before coming back to the miseries of law school. So yeah, a good part of the journey. Definitely recommend it to anyone thinking about going traveling. Life's short. If you can and have the opportunity and your school are willing to defer, definitely highly recommend it. I think it's just given me so much perspective, even when I joined, just coming back, just not seeing, let's say, law school or my career as a lawyer as everything, just putting it into context that it's a job, understanding that people live very different lives where work isn't the epicenter of their lives. It's that whole adage of working to live or living to work, and just kind of getting that balance right. And I think it helps definitely in the interview process when you come to applying for pupillage or whatever it is that you are not seeing it as do or die. This is everything. This is, it kind of gives you a bit of separation from it.
Absolutely, and it's an experience, isn't it? Like you said, to understand different cultures and different ways of life and things like that. I know I went to Bali. I deferred the bar course and went to Bali, and
nice.
It was unreal. However, I caught malaria, scarlet fever, there. So I'm sure if I get the opportunity to go and have an interview with the pupillage panel, they'll be thrilled to hear, and then they'll probably get the shock of their life. I mean, I have where I'm working at the moment as a court clerk, a lot of the judges plan on going to Bali, and word spread around that I caught, well, when I came back, the thing is I had mild sepsis in the blood, and nobody knew, because the infections in Bali hadn't been treated correctly. So when I started work, everyone was like, oh, where's Ellie? And the court clerks, little rascals, went and told every members of the judiciary, oh, she's got malaria. So these judges were like terrified, like, we won't go to Bali then. I was like, I've put everybody off Southeast Asia probably, so it's not Not a great start.
Probably including yourself.
Yeah. Oh no, I will
Yeah.
never go back now. But I would have loved to do Australia, but I heard it is an absolute fortune.
Yeah, it's very expensive. But I've equally heard very lovely. Like my friends in Bali at the moment, has heard very the the scenery is very lovely. I've heard the
Yeah.
beaches are gorgeous. Yeah, very cheap as well.
Oh, so cheap. I was eating like a princess out there. I was loving it. I came back here and I was like, oh Christ, back to like the grocery shopping, breaking the bank. It was a shock, yeah. So also you have a YouTube channel which is aimed primarily, I think it started off, didn't it, all about the bar course, what's needed. And I think one of your first episodes was when you talked about literally having to haul the books into the car
Yeah,
because there was
yeah.
that many of them. And you when did you start that YouTube channel then?
So
So is
the
it
channel's actually changing because
right?
I'm shifting over most because what I've had from people is obviously I do legal content,
Mhm,
but it's not all I do.
mhm.
And what's ended up happening is I have like these division of interests on the channel where I'm talking about it. It looks like a legal channel, and then I'll put some other stuff out, which my other interests, and people are like, you should have two separate channels, and they're right in the sense that being a lawyer and wearing my wig, I should say, is one part of me or what I do, not of me, but what I do. Um, and the other side is my other interests, which is like entrepreneurship, stuff on working in the online space, health and wellness, all those kind of other things that I'm massively interested in and spend a lot of my time in, don't really mix with the legal channels. So what I'm deciding to do is pull most of my legal content over to Legis Lab, which is my platform for online aspiring barristers, and then kind of shift my own channel into not decided on the direction of it yet, but it's going to be not exclusively legal content. I don't plan on actually doing much more legal content on the channel. The last
Okay.
video or last couple of videos I'm going to do is I did a first six video. I'm going to do a second six video,
Yeah,
and then maybe one more video, and then really I won't be touching legal content on that channel anymore. So that's kind of the YouTube channel and where it's heading.
yeah,
Um, but Legis Lab is really what we're trying to build is a legal education platform,
yeah,
essentially, and trying to cover every aspect of the aspiring barrister's journey. We launched the Future People Barrister Academy in December. We're in the process, me and the faculty, of doing the first bar prep course academy because that's never been done. There is a prep course for the SQE.
yes,
There is no prep course for the bar course. So I've put together a team of top, really top barristers from the best chambers around the country in their specific fields, from leading commercial set to a leading civil set to me in the criminal space. And together we are in the process of trying to create this simple version of what is a very complicated course. And the
wow,
idea being that, as you know, they struggle with the bar course.
yeah,
It's a huge investment. They put in 15 to 20,000 pounds, and it's the aim of the course really is to protect that investment, i.e., to give people the
yeah,
best opportunity so that the first time when they're doing the course isn't the actual time that they're doing the course, and they can make the mistakes on the prep course to preserve their grades, ideally on the actual thing. Because for me, when I went onto the bar course, I'd never done advocacy before, minor, and all the elements of the bar course. It's not a traditional academic course that you do at uni. Do a legal essay, do a legal problem. It's very hands-on advocacy, witness handling, things like that, where if someone has a bit of exposure to it before, I'm sure and confident it will make a big impact on their ability to actually perform on the bar course where it matters the most. And then should they come to pupillage, God forbid, it's not gone horribly wrong, which is
no,
hopefully we hope that no one's bar course goes horribly wrong. But
mm,
there are students, and we know because I've been coaching aspiring barristers for almost 2, 3 years now, since 2021, of the people who reach out to me and say, hey, just finished the bar course, didn't get the grade I wanted, and now my chances of getting pupillage are in jeopardy, basically. And that's kind
That's the
of the
thing, isn't it?
inspiration for
Yeah.
why we're doing this.
That's exactly what you just said there as well. It's so daunting to think that the first time you can do the bar course is the first time you're doing the bar course. If it goes wrong, yeah, okay, you can go and repay 15, 16, 17, up to £20,000 for some course providers. But who is really going to be in any financial position to ever do that?
Well, exactly, and as you know, people, I couldn't afford to do the bar course without a
No.
scholarship.
Oh, no.
When I got rejected, I had to come to the reality is that if I don't secure a scholarship, I'm going to need to choose a different career because that's just the reality. So the idea of another 15,000 at that stage is
Justifiable.
just well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the 1% of people that will affect people that can have those resources. But I think for the masses, it's not really an option.
No, I agree. And also Taz has is in the process, as I'm not sure if it's launched yet, but is in the process of launching, could have maybe launched already, the Robin Room. It's my new competition here on the market. A podcast, obviously trying to steal my spotlight. No, but
Interestingly, with the roving room, it's been in the works for a long time. So I believe I sent off the trademark application for it back in
yeah,
March of 2024, I think it was. And that went through, and then it's kind of been a process of getting the people in.
yeah,
So like actually, as you know, running your own podcast is something I've always wanted to do, but particularly in crime, because
yeah,
that's my interest. Well, that's what I
absolutely.
do, and there's a lot of interesting conversations to have. But as you know, I think part of the because I'm new to the podcast world, but part of it is about getting the guests, right?
Oh, for sure.
So and I can only imagine just from having beginning to move into it, just there's actually a lot that goes into it. Spinning the guests, the conversations, even the documents that you said that you produced, where you kind of do the structuring and the planning. It's not just, I think some people just think it's just a conversation, but actually behind the scenes, a lot goes into it.
Yeah, and I think especially with the criminal bar being so, like we were saying before we joined everybody in, so red tapey at times, because of course there's real people, it's real cases. The press, they're allowed to publish certain articles about cases, but that might just be where they've got exposure obviously in the public gallery, but they don't know the confidential stuff, they don't see the bundles and things like that. So speaking to a barrister about real personal things in the career and real sensitive subjects, it can be so difficult at times because there's a level of what you can and can't share.
Yeah,
And I think it's just
100%.
about getting the guests on. And I went into it like a bull in a china shop. I'm going to get judge on. I'm going to get this.
Yeah,
And
that's the
I've
way to
soon got
be.
a shock of reality. However, I've got a little surprise for everybody who's joined on. I have actually managed to secure a circuit judge, and I'm thrilled about it. But I don't know how I managed to do that. But I've worked for magic and done a little bit of persuasion skills, and it's managed to work. But yeah, straight away, immediately, I got told you won't get a judge on. You just won't, because the judiciary is so blocked from even participating in things like that.
Yeah.
Same as barristers. I had a few friends at the CPS that are just paralegal level, which I'm not saying I'm not criticising. I'm just saying that they're at the starting of their nascent legal career. You as a criminal barrister at the CPS, I just didn't expect to even get you on, to be honest. I was just like, shy kids getting out.
Well,
Don't ask.
like I've always said, I've got being working for the CPS. I have my civil service duties, and then I've got
Yeah,
obviously my duties under the Bar Standards Board.
yeah,
So whenever I'm coming on, I'm always kind of conscious of them and conscious of um, conversations that have happened with my employer about. Naturally, any employer is going to be apprehensive to someone coming on the
of course.
podcast and what they can and can't say. And I guess that comes down to it's my job to kind of toe the line, really, and
Yeah,
just kind of navigate that sensitive space as best I can. It's not perfect, but I think the main thing is there's a lot of value I think that can come from giving people insights into the career at a time when you look at what the Criminal Bar Association have been publishing on their social media. 80 something percent of barristers leaving the profession, people leaving the criminal bar in droves. I don't see, and that's another motivation for the roving room with
That was
encouraging people to
same here.
come to the profession rather than, and obviously it's a balance because as we've said, you're not looking to disclose any sensitive or confidential information, and the conversations can happen above board where you don't need to go into that round. And ultimately, I think the value of actually attracting someone or giving them insights into what a career could look like for them is serving the wider good.
I think it's so difficult, isn't it? Because the reason I started the podcast is really similar to that. To one, bring people to the criminal bar and encourage it because it's what my passion is. And I thought there's so many other people out there, but also in the same breath, it's a double-edged sword to try and dispel some of the like assumptions around the criminal bar. For example, oh, you're going to be a criminal barrister, you must be made in millions, that type of attitude. And I think the criminal bar, it really is, from what I've seen and from the barristers that I've managed to connect with, yourself, other barristers that I've spoken to, there really is a deep-rooted level of passion there that all of these barristers tend to display for coming at the criminal bar. And I'm not saying that commercial barristers and family barristers don't. I think that collectively all barristers do have to have this deep-rooted passion. I don't think it's about the money, and I think if you want to come to the criminal bar, you do have to have a drive for it, and that's why pupillage questions are so tailored around why the criminal bar, why us, why this, because I think so many people go into it with these not exactly misconceptions really about what life at the bar is like.
I think as well, it's like you have it's a vocation for a reason, because like with any profession, you will always have people who pop-ups come. You'll always have people who there are other constraints in their ability to potentially do the work to their best of their ability, or time constraints, family, whatever it may be. But like in the medical world and in the criminal world, in not putting everything into it, that's someone's life. That's someone, whether you're on the defense or prosecution side, that is going to have a significant impact on that person's life, their family's life. And there is no half in, half out. There is no just giving it the when people appreciate the consequences, there is no just half in, half out. You don't play with this job.
No.
And that's the consensus from anyone that you speak to. They care about the job. They care about the community. From the prosecution side, they care about the community. They care about making a difference. And then equally on the defense side, they truly, from the defense community, care about their client and advancing their best interests, and not just falling into the understanding and position that they're there as a defense and they'll do that job to the best of their ability in the interest of their client. And equally on the other side, the prosecutor's doing the best that he can do to prosecute the case, to ensure that the codes of the Code for Crown Prosecutors complied with. And wherever you sit, and I reference the medical career as well for this, is that sense of vocation is just felt in work that has such an impact on people's lives, like ER doctors have, where if they weren't doing the extra hours, the whole system would collapse.
Absolutely. It's not a case of going home, switching your laptop off and shutting off. It's like you constantly, if you're prosecuting, you're going to want to bring justice to the public as well, ensure that, people feel protected in the public, obviously, of course, to the victims and their family. And it's so refreshing to hear what you said about how it is a domino effect. It's not just the victim, it's both sides will be damaged for the rest of their lives, I think would be fair to say, because I don't think we would ever get over a trial.
There's a lot of impact, and I think as well, like on the other side of that, is you have to appreciate, and people have to appreciate, that whether you're saving lives in the ER room or you're prosecuting a case, the system needs to be set up in a way for the people to actually want to continue to do that job. Vocation isn't enough to get you through. No matter how valuable you value the work or how much of an impact you're having, if you look at the statistics that from the Bar Association are publishing, people are leaving in droves because the hours are just not sustainable. And that's something that we should care about as a society for people doing those jobs, be that in the law or in the medical profession, is to have the roles where we are literally either on fighting for life or death, or being at the gates of safety for the community. It should be set up in a way where you're motivating people to want to do those jobs. You know what I mean? And this is where we're kind of in a bit of a crisis at the moment, and it is just going around with the criminal bar associations, shining such a light on it, where essentially this is the situation. People are leaving for a reason, and if things don't change, with the best will in the world, your podcast, my podcast, it won't balance the scales for people to want to do the job.
No, people are now starting to drop passion and think smart. And I don't know how many people I've spoken to that went into it the same criminal bar, and they're now like, wouldn't dream of it. I'm going to do family law or regulatory and professional discipline. I mean, even if I do get into pupillage, the places that I'm looking for is places that are really heavy on regulation and professional discipline, because that is I want to balance in both of it to bring the money in, because it's not sustainable from what I've been told from Chambers barristers and other barristers that I've came across as well. It's a real shame, to be honest.
And it is, and it's, people do tend to do the pivot into regulatory, and they do that for a reason. And I think being wherever you end up doing pupillage, you will, if you do pupillage at self-employed or in the employed bar, you're going to get really good foundations under you for any career in regulatory law, because being a prosecutor or being a defense barrister, you just learn to deal with large volumes of cases of information very quickly, that you won't, to a degree, you will get, and I can't generalize, but I'm saying the volume of cases you're going to be doing as a prosecutor is probably much higher than what you're going to be doing in a regulatory role. So if it's the classic, if the threshold's up here and then the caseload drops into your next role, you're going to be flying. You know what I mean? Because you've set you set the
bar so high.
You set the bar so high, and I think that the point I'm making is that the foundations that you get from those pupillages will set you up nicely for whatever career you want to do, inside or outside the bar. Even if you were to leave the bar and you were to go into another profession, that skill set, I think that was one of my biggest motivators to why I wanted a career at the bar. It was because I knew that the person I would become in the journey would, whether I stayed in it long term or not, it would be amazing foundations for whatever I did.
Sorry, absolutely.
There's a fly floating around.
Oh, just like it. No, completely. And I think the similarities between regulatory and professional discipline and I'm just using that as an example because that's the bit of work that I did as paralegal, and criminal is so similar, because you've got kind of like defence and prosecution as you would in it's just in front of a panel. So it does, you are right, it sets you up, I think, doesn't it, just having different experiences and also going through such a grueling process, which we'll get onto your journey in a sec, but such a grueling process. I mean, it must build a different level of resilience that I think every profession would be probably astounded by. But this is the one thing I say as well, is about nurses and doctors and things, like, again, they've got a real tough journey. But the one thing I will say because my cousins are both nurses, the one thing I will say is, they go to university and they are almost guaranteed a job.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And that's not me criticising in any way, shape or form. All that's just stating facts, really. It is true. They will come out with a job.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone would deny that either. That is the nature of it. And like you said, the difference is, for us, there is a disgustingly horrible cliff that happens if you that's why, this is a huge reason why I founded Legis Lab, because the cliff is absolutely disgusting where you can be, and people are, and I know, and I've coached loads of people that find themselves in that position where they've spent so much money, a horrible amount of money.
The debt is just
The debt is disgusting, and then
yeah.
and what they're left with, so people who don't get it over the line is yes, they can go into another career. It's not all for waste, but that's not why they took that loan on. That's not why they took. That's not why they did the bar course and took. If they've taken a loan on of 20,000, or went to law school for 3-4 years and spent a load of money, all geared towards this one point, which is to qualify. And then the savage nature of the legal industry is that if you're unable to qualify, you can only find out after you are deeply invested down the line, and then you're left holding the bag, basically.
So tough. And then the other side of the coin as well is, oh, get a paralegal job. If I hear that one more time, it's like, yeah, trying to get a paralegal job is just as hard as getting pupillage at this rate. Like, it's no good saying, oh, just get a paralegal job. Well, everyone's cottoned onto this paralegal job now, and they're all going for it. So you've got the same caliber of people going for pupillage is now going for paralegal jobs, or volunteers of pro bono. I mean, the next thing will be pro bono organisations will be putting a cap on people, won't they, for coming in and then be all screwed.
Sadly, and this is just the nature of it, is that privilege always plays a role, because people who have the back of mum and dad, they can do that. They can do those horrendously paid paralegal jobs where they can almost volunteer their time and get the experience for that 1 year to then open the door to get a paid paralegal job. But someone who's got family and kids who physically can't do that, they have less options available to them.
At university, I had 2 paid jobs, one throughout the day at Pandora, the jewellery store, one on evening at a sunbed shop, which was fantastic because I could get a free sunbed, so I was over the moon with that. And then I worked 5 pro bono jobs. I was a student director of my law clinic as a paralegal for a pro, and it was absolutely horrific. I mean, I'd come in, and I didn't have the bank of mum and dad to sit and say to me, well, there you go, you don't have to go to work, just focus on your studies or focus on getting your foot in the door with the right people. And when I hosted Mark Robinson on Thursday, he said the same thing. He said, people won't say it, but it's true. If you've been to Oxbridge, if you've got this, there's a huge class.
Huge. And not just that as well, that if you look at the history of let's say the criminal bar, for example, some chambers at the time, I don't know, obviously there are restrictions now, there are minimum award criterias that have set in place by the regulators that people have to award for pupillage. Historically, with pupillage, it was done on a voluntary basis. That's the history. I've been to events with judges who have told me, oh, when it was my time, I volunteered, and that was how it was done back in the past. Historically, just very different. And now where we're at, there's a minimum criteria, but there were, I don't recall how many years ago, but I remember when I was looking at the online adverts for these, some of them were like, a criminal pupillage in London, 12 grand.
12 grand. 12,999. It's only just gone up to £18,000 in London, or £19,000 in London.
You can't wipe your arse in London for £12,000.
You couldn't do it on 19 grand. No, you couldn't. I mean, your rent itself would be, even if you're in the absolute squalors in London, your rent would still be at least about £1.5 grand a month, easy, for a house share.
£1.5 grand minimum, and then all the other things that come in, whether it's expenses that some chambers you're having to front the expenses bill. That's kind of the beauty of being at the employed bar. CPS take care of all, for example, your expenses. All these little things come into the privilege aspect, is that if you want the pupillage, and for example, it's in London back then, and you were on £12,000, you couldn't do it without a friend to live at, or a family member, it's just, so it's always kind of rearing its head a little bit. And then people can only do what they can, and then we can go into actually, how do you go about getting pupillage? Well, you need a mini pupillage. How do you get a mini pupillage when you can't afford to stay at a hotel? I remember staying at Bloody hell! I stayed at a 1-star hotel, I think it was, in Nottingham. This was one of my very first minis. Saved up money from my restaurant job, stayed at that hotel. It was it was an absolute horrendous place. Just loads of stuff going on in there. It felt completely unsafe, and that was just for one mini, and it was an absolute bombshell attached to that experience to get the first mini from the 3 nights at a hotel when I think I was, you know, £400-500 to stay in hotels when you're X age. It's a big
That's
bar to
absolutely
reach.
horrendous.
So,
I was the same. My minis were in London as well. I had the beauty of having my accommodation in Essex, so it was just a train commuting. But even that was £200 for the week for the
yeah,
train.
it's a lot.
And then you've also got to think about as well, outfits.
Yeah,
You've got to
yeah,
find
yeah,
court
yeah,
attire to go in, and it's difficult. That's also hard as well. Then you've got your lunch, and then you've got so before you know it, you're
yeah,
wrapping up
yeah.
£300, £400 for the week. It's
Easy,
really tough.
easy. Yeah,
Really, really tough.
easy.
And not all mini pupilages are funded neither. Not all of them have got that.
Rarely anything are
Rarely,
funded.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
we'll get into the Legis lab, and I was calling it the legalist lab. I don't know why I thought that was the right. I think I just added AL on the end, like legal. And the Lincoln's Inn Scholar. You are a Lincoln's Inn Scholar, aren't you? So you've got Lincoln's Inn Scholarship. And yeah, I mean, so after you did your university degrees, you obviously quite enjoyed university. Is that a fair assumption? I'm just giving off the amount of degrees that you've got.
well, no, I'd say it's mixed. Like I'm sure, like anyone's experience, where
Yeah.
the first 2 years were amazing. I was just partying, really, and having a good time. I hadn't matured yet to the stage where I was like, right, I'm getting serious. My grades are on the line. I just got back from Australia. I was in that place where it's just all fun and games. And then I think university started getting serious for me towards the end of second year. And then because I'd messed around so much in first year, I had a lot of making up to do. And then third year got serious. And then I basically went back to do a master's in corporate commercial law because I got a 2-1 and I wanted to end on a first. And I couldn't afford to do a master's anywhere else. Didn't have the money for it. And I had saw the one at Sheffield. The whole thing was like £7,000-8,000, which was crazy.
It's usually like
And
12 now, isn't it?
well, some places, let's say you want to go to King's or somewhere, that's like 17 and a half. Oxford's like can be 25. Manchester was expensive as well. So like 7 was really low. And at the time, um, they hadn't changed the system because I took the money that was available for a postgraduate, 10 grand, threw it at that to pay for it. And then the reason why I ended up going back was because at that time, there wasn't, you couldn't use that for the bar course. When I did it at the time, if you could have used that, I would have just done the bar course straight away. You see what I mean? So it wasn't available.
Also, now you can use the postgrad because you've got the LLM bar, yeah.
So now you can use it for the LLM. So I didn't have that available. So I was like, I had to take it in a staged approach where I was like, well, I've got a 2-1. I'm probably not going to get, well, not saying I'm not going to get, but I need to increase my chances of getting pupillage. So and then I went back to do a master's, used that money because I didn't have any other money available. Thought, okay, let's get the master's, let's try and get a first, and then take that first and try and go and get at the end scholarship. And that's kind of the path it took.
Right.
And then, so I got a first in my master's, same institute, applied for scholarship, rejected, went around again and got the money, basically, which opened the door to do the career.
So that's Lincoln's Inn, which it's one of the big. Well, it is the biggest inn, isn't it? Biggest inn of court.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest inns. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I've heard it's real difficult because and that one you've got your paper sift as well, haven't you? And then you've got your interview, so you kind of got double. Well, I would find that's double hard because like they're going off of a paper round as well. You've got two thresholds really. Yeah, exactly. And then so that was your university experience, and then you did the bar. And obviously, were you shocked at the volume of work on the bar? What shocked you the most about the bar?
Yeah, definitely the volume of work. I remember doing the opinions and the drafting exercises, and it was completely overwhelming. There was so much information. I was up late every night. I was up early. I was having to come into Manchester and just think about how much I needed to have done to attend one seminar when I had loads of other seminars going on every day. And just to prepare to actually attend those seminars and be prepared for one day was an overwhelming amount of work. And then you have to do that for 5 days. And then the exams are immediate once you've joined. You've got a little window. You're falling behind all the time because you can't consolidate. The information is just coming so hard and fast. And you're just drained. You're knackered. Your brain hurts. And you have that pressure, don't you, where you're like, right, whether you take a loan out or you get given a scholarship, you're like, either I've been given this money, I need to make the most of it, or I've taken a loan out here, which is more stressful, I need to do something here. And you feel like it's slipping away from you because the information is just so overwhelming. And unless you're one of those brain boxes that just absorbs, you're now like, I'm doing mock exams and failing mock exams. I'm like, oh God, like, that's not looking good. But then really it was just about being you've got to be so strategic on the course. Time is really of the essence. You've got to make calculated decisions. Sometimes you go off on your own and say, hey, look, they're telling me I need to do all these classes and do it in this way, but I'm just going to go off and do it my way. And that's different for everyone, where you're like, right, it's not benefiting me anymore to do it in this way. I know myself, I know how I perform. And then kind of having to make those clinical decisions, you make a lot of clinical decisions on the bar course that determine what grade you get. And there's not one fits for everyone, but I think having to make those decisions and the stress that comes with the course and feeling, bloody hell, if I don't get the grade I need, that's where most of the stress came. Because I think the way it works is, if you fail 2 exams, I think you're capped. I think that's how it works. That's how it worked for me. So I think it's 2 or 3. If you fail 1 or 2, I think if you fail 1, you're capped at a BC. If you fail 2, you're capped at a pass, and you've got 2 times to resit. That's may have changed since I did it, but that was how it was. So you take that pressure in every exam. 12 exams, a lot of information, very short window. And that's kind of anyone who's completed the bar course, but you'll have that shared camaraderie of the suffering that anyone who's gone through the course has been through.
Yeah, well, I think you've just well and truly cut me off there. I was supposed to be starting it in September, and that's sometimes the thing with me, and I will admit it, not to most people, but I will admit it, that sometimes I think we're all guilty of it. I can get so complacent, just completely and utterly like in my own world, sometimes away with the fairies, and sometimes I take on far too much. Like I'll be like trying to do a million things at once. I'll be like, oh, this is brilliant, it gives me the energy, and yet just give me the energy, but then the eye slowly comes off the ball because you can't balance 5 things at once.
No.
I shouldn't ever say this out loud, but I'm going to anyways because who cares. I did my dissertation 4 hours before it was due, and I don't know how I managed to get a 2-1. I was up at the morning, 4 o'clock I set my alarm for, right, and for some reason I'd like said to my mum, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like, I don't know why I told her. She was like, I don't really care, good luck. And I went downstairs and I was like swanning around the kitchen with my dressing gown on, like boiling the kettle. And I was like, I'll just set up my laptop, like get in the zone, put the TV on. And I was like, I literally got 5 hours to get this dissertation done. But that's because I took on a sunbed shop. I bought a sunbed shop, and I was just like thinking about all of these things. Oh, right, that's great, because that'll be commercial awareness for me. I'll be able to show I can manage my finances. I'll be able to show I've got, the ability and motivation to balance things. No, it just doesn't work. But I was thinking of what to say in pupillage interviews 2 years beforehand, and as a result of it, I got a 2-1, which is not too bad, but really it should have been a first.
Yeah.
Because I
Well,
did
you
mine
can
on
only
joint.
do so much, right? You could
Yeah,
only.
exactly. I did mine on joint enterprise, so I think I was really cocky because I'd done criminal appeals and the focus was joint enterprise. So I was
Yeah.
like, I literally know all about this. I didn't. I did like 3 cases. But yeah, I think it's so easy to take your eye off the ball, and that is what everyone's told me. Like the general consensus is, don't with the bar course. You just can't. You just
Yeah.
have not even got that option.
Did you buy the sunbed shot for free tans?
Obviously, I hammered them every day. Well, to be honest, it was my mum's, so I bought it off her. And oh, that was a whole nother story as well. I bought it off her, but she was still getting my mother was still getting the electricity invoices. And on one of them, I'd been on the sunbed, and I do not encourage this in the slightest, but I'd been on the sunbed for half an hour. Right. I don't know why I thought that was a smart idea. I mean, I came off really sun-kissed, but it was obviously just skin health and everything just through. And she got the invoice and she was like, why was the bed, like, why was one of the beds on for half an hour? And I was like, oh, well, in fact, kind sir, I was on that bed. And she was like, what on earth? Like, never again.
Making the most of it.
Yeah, I rang the electricity company and I was like, take her off the account now because this is going to cause some serious like
The
relationship
stress,
breakdown
yeah.
in my family home. Yeah. But yeah, that was great. So you also worked, and this is I'm so excited to ask this question. So you worked as on a voluntary internship basis for the Louisiana Capital Post Conviction Project. That's a
Yeah,
mouthful.
it is.
So can you just explain what that actually is?
Yeah, so CPCPL was the office that I was sent to as part of the Amicus scheme. So they have loads of offices all over the states that are affiliated with Amicus ALJ. The one I applied to was for an intern, a US internship. They either do US or UK based. I applied for the US one. I applied for the bursary at the time, which was offered by Matrix Chambers. I ended up winning that bursary, and then it wasn't a crazy amount of money, but it was more value on
It
the
helps.
application than the
Yeah.
actual money. Really, the money did very little out there, to be honest. However, I went there, went to New Orleans, which was incredible. Didn't really know what to expect. You hear very there's mixed reviews on New Orleans, isn't there? Obviously, people who live in the States know it more than the UK, but I think people from the UK they associate it more with it can be a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
And I remember my brother showing me some video of these hood guys before I went. I'm like, whoa, you need to be careful there.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, I just got there and it was very different. Lovely place. Yeah, there's crime there. People end up getting killed not far from my gym because it's done on a gate system, like a grid system. So I was living in uptown New Orleans, which was a nicer-ish area. Downtown, or can be a bit rougher. But there is, like with anything, there are nice places in town. There's good places in
Yeah.
uptown, bad places in uptown. But it was amazing. Like I went there for 4 months. I was living with these guys from Tulane University, this group of students, and it was like they were on summer break basically. So they were having the time of their lives,
Yeah. And you were
enjoying their
there
summer,
working.
and I was there working, but it was like I'd go to the job 9 to 5, come back, and then I'd have people similar age to me just enjoying their summer break. So it was perfect. And if anyone's
Yeah.
going to do a thing like that, you want to do it where you actually gain something out of it as well. Like, yes, obviously I went there for I cared about what the cause was. I
Mhm.
selfishly wanted something as well, unique on my CV. But I think you want to take something more away from just the CV and you doing something. You want to experience the country, experience the culture. So if you can line it up over summer, I think you're going to have a much better time than doing it over the winter period
Winter.
where
Yeah.
people are in uni, they're not as carefree. Um, but yeah, amazing experience. The work was incredible. You just see a completely different criminal justice system, and you're dealing with people who are on death row basically, and you're meeting those people. They're not just people in papers. You're driving to the prison, and you're buying. Well, you have to buy, but I wanted to buy them lunch and sit with them and chat with them, and yeah, it's an eerie
Oh,
feeling going into, let's say, LA State Penitentiary. You've got snipers on the roof. I was 23, 24 years old. I was being told when I got there, you're going to be leaving you alone and I'll see you at 5. Then you're being told when you're there that you're in a block, an area of the prison where they are some inmates, or however you want to describe them, they're not in prison. They are just roaming around because they're wearing white jackets and they've got privileges to not be in the cells 23, 24 hours a day. So then you're in a place by yourself where people in white jackets are walking around, and it feels like anything could happen at any moment. If no one's there, there's no security guard there, and yeah, it's different than just dealing with someone behind glass. You know what I mean? Like you're in the mix on good faith that everything's going to be all right. And as a young man at the time, you know, it was exhilarating, I think is the way to put it. But it was amazing as well. Like I sat there, I spoke with people, you get their life story. Obviously, you've read about what they've done on the papers.
So if you
And
don't,
it's just, yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
so I was just to say, if you don't mind me asking, if you can say, what were some of those crimes?
What was some of the people in there for?
Yeah.
Well, one of them he had basically his partner was pregnant and he'd killed her while she was with their child, and her body was found in the lake. And then he was arrested and charged. Basically, you have another one who had basically gone into a home as someone providing a service, gardening service. He then ended up just killing the whole family, basically. So that's kind of the a flavour of.
Horrific, isn't it, really? I mean, absolutely horrific. And do these people um stand by their conviction, or do they plead innocent still?
Well, it really is case by case. It's individual. There are definitely, undoubtedly, people in that system who are wrongly convicted.
Yeah.
And that system is, unfortunately, due to socioeconomic problems, affects the Black community more. And you have a more criminalization of the Black community than the white community, just by the very nature in the way the system's set up, in terms of if there's economic issues there is getting access to good legal representation, getting the right legal advice, being able to pay to defend yourself if you are found in that position. And there's a whole host of problems that's actually deeply sad.
Yeah, that is
It's
horrific.
deeply saddening, and just coming home makes you. We don't have a perfect criminal justice system here, but and there are loads of problems within the criminal justice system as a whole in any country. But coming back from the States just did make me look at our criminal justice system differently.
And also, I mean, some of those stories that they, and especially meeting them one on one, like you're not behind glass, you're sitting with somebody who has been, whether they've admitted it, whether they're of the acceptance that they have from that crime, and they're like, yeah, I admit that, I'm fine with that, it's my peace now. Or whether, they genuinely are saying that they haven't done the crime, regardless of what their position is. You're meeting people that have potentially, destroyed a full family's life, destroyed their own life, and telling you their life story. You can't. I mean, I know it's so difficult, and people sometimes think, it's so, you would hate that person for if they've committed a crime, and it's so easy to hate them and kill them to bring the death penalty back. But I think when you actually sit and speak with somebody, you human emotions come out, don't they? And you do just think, why, what has gone so wrong here? And
Yeah.
do you think that's quite fair to say that you've got them emotions as well from
Yeah,
meeting?
definitely. I think being a lot of people have come to criminal law because of that human aspect, because of their desire to have an impact, and they just that connection element. So you're not immune from it, regardless of what they may or may not have done. You sometimes you just don't know, right? You don't know what the situation is, but at the end of the day, you're sat across from someone having a conversation, and I think everyone's different, and just being able to say, well, this person's done this, and switch off from them. It's not how I'm wired. I'm there, I'm human, and we have a conversation. I think though, what doing the job, you become acclimated more to that part of life. Some people never have to go through it. I think if you're a criminal lawyer, you've probably been through it. You definitely have been through it. And so for some people, it's not for them. I was at a panel event last week at Westminster University, and one of the barristers on the panel said I did crime, couldn't switch off when I got home, took it home with me, and I went into family. So that's it just depends how you're wired, I guess. Or
that's groundbreaking to me, because I'm the opposite. I'm a family court clerk at the moment, and there's been times where I've actually, and I've said this on a previous episode, I had to turn around, and I'm not ashamed to admit at all. I did really, really well up in an adoption process. Absolutely horrific. My brain just could not comprehend it. However, you can put me in a room with somebody who's committed a really, really heinous act, has been convicted of committing a really heinous act, and some really tough stories that I've sat and listened in trials. And the jury, 12 people have returned a verdict that they think is correct, and rightly so. And I haven't been bothered at all in the slightest. Fixing personal statements.
100%, it is very individual, and I think
really
what I'd say is who I am when I'm there to prosecute is my emotions are completely aside.
Yeah.
However, with that said, I have been, before I became a barrister, or after I became a barrister, when I was shadowing, when I was a pupil, before I'd qualified, I have been to cases where it's been where I'm not prosecuting, I'm just observing, and you can connect with what's happening. And I have been in cases where there have been, brothers there, something's happened that's ended up being with one of the brothers, ends up facing a life sentence, and his older brother wasn't there to protect him, blames himself for how his brother turned out because of traumas that were going on at home. And that cut me deep. I was at dinner with my brother and my partner and his partner, and a tear was running down my eye over it, because in that moment I can't not sympathize or empathize with that person, because I could see my brother in him.
Absolutely. I think that's the thing. That's why I find family so difficult, because I think, oh my goodness, one of my biggest dreams is to become a mother one day. And, and I think that's a lot of, well, I'm not going to speak on behalf of every woman, because you can get wrong for that nowadays, but that's definitely one of my dreams, is to have a child. And for me, I was sat thinking, oh my, I've got a little brother, and he's like my life and more. And there was a disparity in our ages. So my mum had him when I was 14. So I was kind of like his, motherly figure as well. And I just thought, oh God, I can't. There's too much association for me to what I see my life looking like, and I couldn't do it. I just really couldn't. But it really is totally depends. Some people can't do a crime. Some people can't do family. It just totally depends, doesn't it? Really.
100%, and then you have as well the interest. Like for me personally, I wasn't really interested in doing law if I wasn't doing crime.
Yeah, that's the same for me, for sure. And it's interesting what you say about the brothers, that story with the brothers there, all over the news at the moment, is adolescence. And that's about the whole theme, the recurring theme throughout that series, for those who haven't saw it yet.
Seen it yet. It's on my list. I
won't spoil, but it is just basically, which you'll see in the news articles anyways, I'm not spoiling anything. It's just about how society is so broken, and you can turn your back from your children and things like that, and you don't actually know what they're getting involved and embroiled in. And it's about parents blaming themselves for not doing enough. But I think the reality is, it's the society as a whole, isn't it? It's not just one parent or one brother or one sister who didn't do enough.
100%. Like me and friends, colleagues, we've spoken about that concept of the butterfly effect, that one thing can have a knock-on effect in so many different ways. One person getting a criminal conviction can mean they end up giving up on trying to get a job. So then they give up on trying to get a job. and then they lean into a life of crime, and it just can cascade like that. And then that person ends up raising a family, and their children end up getting into crime, and it can domino basically. So
And
yeah,
there's so many cases that I saw where it's drug dealers have had an argument over a drug deal gone wrong, or one one sorry, I apologise. I can't multitask. A drug deal gone wrong, for example, or someone's stealing someone's drugs on the block, if that's the right terminology. And then before you know it, there's a murder at the end of it. And it's like, I don't think that these people need to go into this life of drug dealing and think, oh, I'm going to kill somebody in a few months' time. I think they just go down one stream and think, right, well, I'm going to do a little bit of drug dealing. There's no harm in that. I'll make a bit of money off selling a bit of cocaine or a bit of crack. And then before you know it, someone's been stabbed to death. And it's
exactly. They
you've
never,
just said,
very rarely go into it to do that. That's just a consequence of the being in the environment. And
absolutely.
9 times out of 10, they're in it for economic reasons. They've got a family to feed. They don't have any skills outside of what they know to put bread on the table. So it's this idea of evil versus good is very black and white. I think there's often in life a lot of grey around why people do or end up the way they are. So
yeah, no, I agree. We will answer the questions at the end of the episode, and then because there's a few other questions for you as well that I've got written down from what people have sent in. Right, well, thank you for that. That was really helpful. So, in terms of working at Manchester Crown Court with the witness service, have you really, and in your career now in present time, have you really saw the benefits of working and being exposed to that element of Crown Court and court life, handling witnesses, to now being a prosecution barrister and being able to handle probably some of the more sensitive and vulnerable witnesses and their families as well? I think sometimes as well I've looked at Crown prosecution and thought, gosh, how do they, and when I've seen it, when I've done my minis, how do they curb that victim's emotions and their fear and their anxiety? But you've also got the family as well, and that's what I saw on one of my
100%.
minis. It's the family are also with sharing that same emotion. So as a Crown prosecutor now, do you reap the benefits from what you did and having that early exposure at Manchester Crown Court?
Yeah, definitely, because it gives you what happens outside of court, i.e. the people where they when you work for the witness service, you know the process. They come in, there's a waiting room, they're going to be spoken to, you see what condition they're in before they go and give evidence, and knowing all of that and what they go through connects the bridge for me to when I speak to them after having been in witness service. I can navigate that much better, and I can speak with them and comfort them about their fears and have those discussions with them. And as well, at the witness service, you're trained. I went on training dealing with very vulnerable witnesses. It was, I think, a 2-3 day weekend, which you just learn a lot of things, signs to look for victims of domestic abuse and things like that. All of that comes into making you a better agent of the criminal justice system, rather than just seeing my role as a prosecutor. I am an actor within the criminal justice system, and I wear multiple hats. I'm not just there to prosecute. There's something was called speaking with witnesses at court. That is just as important as prosecuting the cases. And having been at the witness service, it's incredibly valuable. If not for anything, then two things: to get experience with witnesses, but also to get a real insight into what is going on at court, which a lot of people don't really know. This guy's gone to prison. They don't really know what the process is, how it happens, what the elements of a trial are. So from that perspective, even if you don't want to go into law, I think it's super valuable.
Well, I think as well, isn't it? It's off the back of what you've just said there. It's about learning what different people, how they display their trauma. Like you've just said, they're domestic violent victims, may behave incredibly difficult to somebody who's just been raped, for example, or someone who's got a drug addiction. They might be in complete denial. People with drug addictions, I've seen that often, that they are just in denial, or any addiction, alcohol addictions, they can't really face that they have got the addiction or anything like that, and they tend to lie without realizing that they are lying, if that makes sense. And yeah, I guess that it's just really useful to be able to pick up on those type of skills and those type of personality traits across the whole board.
A good one to watch is we went and watched a showing of it, which is called Prima Facie. I don't know if you've heard of it. Prima
I've
Facie.
seen it. No, I've not. I've heard of it. I've seen it advertised, but I've not watched it yet.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really worth a watch. It goes into the just debunking a lot of myths around victims of crime and abuse and things of that nature, sexual abuse.
There you go. There's one for you guys to watch. So also, do you have a certain way of tackling a real extremely sensitive and anxious witness? Say, for example, a victim of DV, domestic violence. How do you have a certain way of tackling it? I mean, it probably will just come naturally, but
just trying to be human. Someone's here. They're probably coming. This might be the only time they're ever going to be in this building. They're probably extremely nervous, overwhelmed, and recognizing that and communicating with them that you can just through the subtleties of human behavior, through eye contact, through how you're speaking, slowing things down, asking them if they need a glass of water, giving them space and time, reassurance. All of these things can play a massive role in how the examination in chief process is going to go. You can't, as you know, you can't coach a witness, you can't speak with a witness while they're giving evidence, but while they are giving evidence, you can say, do you need a moment, and show some empathy and some compassion. The fact that they are extremely overwhelmed and probably extremely nervous, and the fact that once someone recognizes that you see and understand that this is actually a very difficult for them, I think that brings a whole sense of relief.
And on the flip side of that coin, that level of sympathy and empathy that you've got for the victims or the witnesses that are coming to the trial, do you have you ever had that same sort of I guess empathy for the defendants? I know it's a really strange question to ask.
No, it's not. It's not a strange question. I think it's always on a case by case basis. I'm not there to curtail my prosecution or curtail my ability to put the case because if a defendant's in the box and emotions have arisen. However, with that said, I still think there's a way to put the case where you are acknowledging and maybe even getting more out of the witness by not ignoring that they may be under distress. It's what we have to, especially with youths, you have to take these things into consideration. You can't be, as you know, we have ethical duties. You can't harass the witness. You can't be bullying witnesses. So we do have ethical standards to be upholding. But I think, just generally speaking, making allowances for someone being distressed, I don't think giving a defendant some space or if they need to take a break is going to end up derailing the way in which you're prosecuting. And I think it can actually benefit it can show, if you're in a jury context, it can show potentially the jury that you're not overzealous. And if you're dealing with a bench of magistrates as well, you're not looking like you're a gunslinger.
Yeah.
So.
And so now you are a criminal barrister, you've made it, and you've made your dream. You chased your dream for so long. I said in a LinkedIn post, if I think that from what I've read, which is very little, and I was actually saying to a friend earlier on, it's so crazy that all of the people, the reason I set up this podcast was to bring really, really inspiring figures on. And I'm not saying that barristers aren't inspiring, they are. They've all had some sort of process along the way, but there's a real select few that have got a real story to tell. And everybody that I've had on so far, I've had an unbelievable story to tell, and a really inspiring one. And the same goes for you. stuck in at university, you achieved your degrees, you went and did the bar course, you worked so hard to then be able to afford the things that you wanted. You know, you went to the States and did the the voluntary internship, and you went backpacking. Like, you've just got so much to tell. And at some points in life, it didn't, from what I've read, it didn't all go your way, and there was times where you were in real hardship. It was real hardship for you.
Definitely. Like when I finished the bar course, I I'd put myself under that much stress that I had just I'd got to a place where which I didn't recognize immediately, I was just suffering from just a complete deterioration of my mental health. And I remember calling, and I'm, a very proud person, very, pride myself on strength and stoicism. But I remember just calling my brother, didn't know what was wrong. This is after the course already finished and done. And just ended up breaking down on the phone to him because I was just suffering. I couldn't switch off. I was just anxious like hell, really in a bad place. And, that was compounded by the fact that COVID just hit. Couldn't get a job anywhere. Couldn't believe I couldn't get a job because I'd had all this academic success and I was applying places, rejected. Money has dried up, no money left. And I'm in a place basically where I'm going to the job centre, ended up on benefits. I wanted it to be a relatively quick process. Just didn't see, prior to that, I was actually quite embarrassed and ashamed that I was on, benefits, and I was just in a very dark place in my life. No pupillage either at that point. Skin, everything's just felt like it was just shit, to be honest. And then, like that flap of the wings of the butterfly, I ended up getting a job finally at the ICO, and slowly things started to come together. I put a post up on my LinkedIn. I don't know if you would have seen it, was ages ago, where I was so just skin, or didn't really have any money, didn't have any clothes, didn't have anything. I was just I'm not saying I completely, obviously it's all relative, right? There are some people out there in life who actually have nothing. I'm not saying I'm one of those people. I'm saying by people around me, friends who were flying in their careers, had the same pair of shoes on for years, just couldn't afford a new pair of shoes. And I remember getting my very first paycheck from the new job, and I just ended up getting these new pairs of Vans shoes.
I did see. I actually told a friend, and when I actually seen it, believe it or not, I cried. I was feeling really emotional, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is amazing!"
It meant the world. It meant the world to me, and because it was such a place where things were just moving differently. I'd been in a horrible dark place for ages, and it's part of the reason actually why I, where that place that I was in, I ended up starting therapy because of that. Just going to speak to someone about what was going on with me. Went there, interestingly, for one reason, ended up kind of going into a lot of other things, which I'm sure we'll get into on a different date. But I wouldn't have gone had it not been for kind of that place that I was in. And going there was kind of the beginning of me actually getting to know me better, because I was just constantly goal chasing and head down, not really in touch with myself in that way. And I think got the new pair of shoes, developing a better relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Then I end up getting, coming off benefits, happened within the same period to get an offer, and never forget the offer, because I remember my 5th year applying. Every year was getting better. Second 2 years, no offers. 3rd, 4th, 5th year, I really got stuck into learning the process, speaking to hundreds of barristers, judges, everything, just taking every resource online, dialing it all in, and just learning the system. And that ended up, I was third, fourth, fifth year getting offers at some of the best sets in the country, but just not getting over the line. And then in the final year, it all came together. The deadline closing was, I think it was 5th of May or 4th of May, and it just came in at the last half an hour, 20 minutes, where I thought, oh God, it's another year. And as you know, once you hit the 5-year mark, then you're asking for an extension. And there's all these kind of other things that pressures were plaguing me. And it just went within a space of 6 months to being in a horrible hellhole to feeling like things were turning around. So, I can only be grateful. And like I said, I would never try and act like I'm a kid from the ghetto, because that is not me. I was born in Stockport, raised in a place called Aswood Lane, bit of a rough area in Stockport, but then we moved, and I'm not anything other than always been in a job, always tried to make my own money, my own way in life. Like many people, you've got to work, you've got to get a job, you've got to pay for things. And just grateful that there were days when I thought all of it, didn't know if anything was going to materialize and anything was going to come. And, in the end, everything, as cliche as it is, worked out. And it just, when I got the offer, it was, yeah, it's a moment I'll never forget, because I was at home and my dad was constantly asking me year after year, what's happening, what's going on, like, is it happened this year? And every year I'd say to him, no, no. And we just get into that place where you're close to giving up. And I was at that place so many times where I was almost done. I was so sick to death of it. And then we just had a moment. He came in, told him I got it. He was super emotional. We hugged.
Oh,
And it was just, it was a really, really special moment I'll never forget. And
wow.
part of the journey is doing it, like, that when that time comes to, like, when you're called to the bar, as you know, the name of the podcast is that, for me, is more about family.
Yeah.
And everyone who's invested into you to get you there.
Yeah.
Your parents who have helped, your friends, your bar colleagues, everyone's kind of played their role to get you there. And for me, that call to the bar is one of the most special days, where you get to celebrate everyone else who's helped you to get there, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And thank you ever so much for sharing that, because I think that's just really groundbreaking for everybody to listen to that. And I know I can say probably on behalf of everybody, you are a real inspiration to all of us, every single person.
Thanks.
On the social media platforms that I've got had messaged about you straight away, saying they've all followed your journey. So it just goes to show how much you are probably bringing to people's real dark times as well. You're bringing light to people's dark times, and maybe you never had that. But I mean, what consolation it must bring to know that you are providing that to so many people, especially young people that may have nobody neither, and may have real difficult situations as well. And I know you say that you are grateful to be where you are now, but I think that there must be, and there has to be, an element of I've earned it, because you relentless. The resilience is unmatched. So too right, you should be embarrassed. You should be swanning around with that wig on in everywhere.
Wow.
Tesco answer everywhere.
I
You should
know,
have
honestly,
100%.
it means a lot. Thank you. And
Yeah,
there
no, thank you.
is the gratitude, but like you said, there is the work that you put in to make it happen. But also, I think why it will always be overdone by gratitude, because anyone who tells you about the road to pupillage, they always say, and it's true, there is an element of luck. And
Absolutely.
you can put all the work in the world, and it might not. The reality, it may or may not happen. The harder you work, the luckier you get, and the more opportunities you get. And I believe with the right, speaking to the right people, getting the right information, playing it like a game of chess. I always go back to chessboard. Everything increases that chances by 1%, 1%, 1%. Hopefully, then you're in a place where it's just enough to get it over the line, and then you'll start swanning around.
And yeah, in Tesco, as I just said then. And I mean, I must say though, I'm a believer in a higher power. I'm a believer in God, and I do believe that um, when somebody puts that much into something, I know that there is an element of luck with people. I'm not saying there isn't. I completely agree, and I think that it's bloody unfair as well, to be honest. But that's life, and there's no point getting into
It
that when
is,
you can't change it. But I do think that you have to be recognised. I think that fate is a big thing as well, and I think that yeah, I do. I think that you were destined. Maybe people talk about sometimes when they've been through such a grueling process, they refer to their becoming a barrister as they were chosen to be a barrister. Now that may seem really cringe to some people, but to me it doesn't. And I do,
yeah.
when I listen to people's stories, I really resonate with that for them, on behalf of them, and that they do feel it was like a calling. And I think that when you've got that feeling, you have to become one. I think it's your destiny.
100, and I completely agree. Like, I'm a big believer in fate. I'm a big believer in destiny. I think
Yeah.
there's parts where you play a hand in that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I think, you know, on the path, I think things happen, and I'm a big believer in karma as well. And
Yeah.
when I look at kind of my journey to the bar, I did things that people would advise me against. I was, for example, that day that I published that letter about that Chambers, where they were super. That was, it's changed now, but that was the letter I received, basically saying give up. And you have, when I went onto YouTube, it wasn't in a three-piece suit. It was in casual wear, where people were like, oh, if Chambers are going to look at you, they're not going to want to take you. But my whole thing why I was doing that is because I wanted to do away with the three-piece suit culture, where
Characteristics.
yeah, it just creates a lot of pressure, because that's not where I'm from. Yes, I wear a three-piece suit. I love a three-piece suit. But I was doing things along the way where, even, for example, when I launched the channel talking about bar prep, the bar calls, and loads of things, and I didn't have pupillage. And if I hadn't, if I hadn't got pupillage, I'm there basing a whole YouTube channel on, because I just wanted to help people. You know what I mean? I just
Well,
wanted to support people on the bar course, even though I may never end up getting pupillage and I end up looking like a fool, because people are like, you've got a YouTube channel all about the bar, and you've not ended up getting
Well, it's the same to
pupillage.
me. There's some elements of criminal law that I know inside and out from doing criminal appeals and little bits and bobs like that. Certain offences that I know like the back of my hand and I've got confidence in them. There's other stuff that I think I know about and I get violently humbled regularly. And the same for family law. And people are like, I don't understand how you made a podcast, but it's all about the learning process. And for
100%.
me as well, as everybody else that's on this podcast tonight as well, thank you for dedicating your time to join on. Um, it is, for me, it's about learning, and that's what selfishly,
Yeah.
that is why another reason I set up the podcast. I'm not going to sit and lie and say I set it up for the benefit of everyone else. Of course I did, but within that I mean myself as well, because
Yeah,
there's so much that I need to learn.
and there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, like, at the end of the day, my whole thing with, if you give more value than you take, that's what I always aim to do. You give
Yeah.
more value than you take. No one can ever have a problem with that.
No.
And going back to what you're saying, I completely agree. Like, I believe, let's say when I was doing my videos, or continue to do my videos, I'm not trying to come at it as a guru. I'm
No,
trying
no,
to come
no.
at it as, let's go on the journey together. We'll learn stuff together. I don't know everything, but that's
Yeah.
kind of what you have to do, right? To even take a
Yeah.
step. But otherwise, you wouldn't do anything.
And I'm gonna, stick my small size fours in a second and turn around and talk about the CPS grades. And grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, and the RASO panel. And I'm like I said, that's all I know. I know the RASO panel. I know grade 1, 2, and 3 and 4. But I'm gonna need you to guide the rest of the way on that. And it's not, you are right, it's not about coming in as a guru level. It's just about trying to learn as well. And then all embark on the same journey, really. And you mentioned your father there, like a really emotional moment that you both guys shared, really special one that you'll probably hold in your heart for the rest of your days. And have you got a real good relationship with your father? I read somewhere, and I think it could be incorrect, it may be true. What's your father's profession, if you don't mind me asking?
He's an engineer.
Oh, right. Okay. So
Yeah, 'cause
I think there must have been a little typo somewhere said that he was a barrister.
so on Daily Mail, when first, I emailed them to ask them to change it because it's factually wrong.
Yeah. I was like,
I
oh,
think
like father and son barrister, like this is fantastic. But
so what ended up happening is because when I put the wig on him, they thought he was a
yes.
barrister. But actually,
Oh,
that
right.
that
Okay.
that
It was a
moment
con.
was a moment
Right.
between me and him. Because that is one of my favorite photos. It's not one. It's my favorite photo of us together ever.
Yeah.
Because I put the wig on him, and he's such a genuine. He's so overjoyed and happy, and he was.
Oh, you can see it in
Yeah,
his
he was.
face. He's like, he's made up. It's as if it just made up. And that's why I ask. That's why I ask a real personal question that you don't have to
Yeah,
answer to if
no,
you
no,
don't want
not
to.
at
But
all.
the relationship that you've got between,
It's
from what it looks like on the face of it, just looks unbelievable.
Yeah, it wasn't always that way. I think growing up, because my dad's from, I'm half Arabic, I'm half English. He's grown
Yeah.
up, he's born and raised 1950s Syria. So
Wow.
it's, it was he was a very big disciplinarian when I was younger. But as I've got older, those kind of things have fallen away and we've
Got that
become
mutual
much better
respect.
friends. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, that's really and do you think that having him as a supporting figure definitely helped you throughout your grueling journey?
Definitely, but I think as well,
And your
what I'd
brother
add
as well.
is my brother's absolutely best friend, always has
Yeah.
been. Really have a special brotherhood relationship with my brother. Like, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. Really one of the purest relationships I've ever had in my
Oh,
life. And to go back about my dad is because my dad wasn't born and raised here and he knows nothing about law.
yeah.
It was only like with everyone, he can't pave the way for me, right? So everyone comes from a different perspective or different background, but what he gave me the skills to go on the journey without him there, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of and that's what I'm
Gave that
grateful to him for.
unconditional support and yeah,
Yeah,
and from a distance, but and that's all you need, isn't it, really? You just, and
yeah,
it's same for family and friends and all, it goes the same for all of them.
definitely.
And oh, that's really nice to hear about your brother as well. Just out of curiosity, who was the most like worst behaved one out of the two?
Probably me. Probably
Well,
me.
do you
Yeah.
know, are you the
The naughty
youngest?
child. Yeah.
Right, so I've got a little brother, and as I just said then, 10-year-old he is. Honestly, the kid's not, he's not from this planet. I'm telling you, there's something, he's definitely something in the brain, chemical imbalance somewhere down the line.
The
He's
young ones are
so,
always the cheeky ones.
so naughty. And I was telling somebody a story the other day, actually. It was actually a judge, believe it or not. I was Judge Martian, I was telling the judge the story, and he was, I mean, his shivers were timbered, to be honest, whatever the scene is. He was shook. My little brother, we've got a dog, a Shih Tzu, and Rio is the dog, and I came in and I thought, where's the dog gone? I thought, oh no, where's Ethan and where's the dog? We went upstairs, dog was in the shower. I was like, oh Christ. And it was like a teacup, we use a teacup Shih Tzu as well, so he was drowning in the shower. And Ethan's like, what? I was giving him wash, and I was like, get him out of the shower now. And I was just like, why is it? But he's baby Jesus to my family, like he's baby
Yeah.
Jesus, so he couldn't do no wrong. So I was just wondering which one the naughty one
He's
is.
got immunity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% all the time. But yeah, so talking a little bit about your extra projects then, so the Legis Lab, what do you think is one of the most important factors of having the Legis Lab accessible there for students? So you've got the
So
one-on-one sessions as well, haven't you?
yeah, so Legis Lab is we're a faculty. We are a team that's growing and we have big plans for Legis Lab. Essentially, what we want to be is in the future like a Barbary.
Yeah,
That's what our aspirations are.
yeah,
We are very small at the moment. We do offer paid courses, we do offer paid coaching
yeah,
and paid accelerators, but also we balance that with we do offer a lot of stuff for free because we
mm,
believe in giving stuff for free. My whole YouTube channel is giving stuff for free. I put my bar course notes up for free. So we offer services for people who want paid services. And then for those who don't, we offer free online community. We host monthly advocacy events, which includes debating, public speaking, and mooting. And really, where we want to get to in the next 2 years is essentially have a full, comprehensive online legal education platform
yeah,
that can take an aspiring barrister who knows nothing about the bar, nothing about the journey, through the bar prep course, which gives them the skills to have the best chance of getting the best grade possible on the bar course. And then once they finish that, not what it has been historically, where you look at the solicitor market, there's loads of people that help SQE or
SQE1, SQE2 prep course.
SQE1, SQE2, help them get a training contract if they're on the LPC route.
I know.
How it's been at the bar is you finish the bar course, you don't hear from the provider anymore, see you later, gone. And then you are in this world of trying to get pupillage and you don't really know much about it. You're just taking things piecemeal across the internet. So that's why we launched the Future Pupil Barrister Academy, which is a comprehensive program to take someone through the entire pupillage process. The next step for us is we want to diversify it so that we offer a civil Future Pupil Barrister Academy, a commercial and a criminal and a family. That's the goal for it. So different variations of it. And that's part of our next 12 months plan. We've just essentially been, like with any startup, there's so much in the beginning that you're trying to get right. You're trying to get your tech stack right. You're trying to get the team together right. You're trying to pick the right people. You're actually trying to create the resources. You're trying to learn a bit about the marketing, and there's so much going on. And people look at it and they don't appreciate that to get to where it's at currently is an incredible amount of investment, not just in time, in money, it just to get it to where it is. And that is hopefully serving people in the best. The whole point of it is to help and serve people who are pursuing a career at the bar. And we hope within the next 12 months it's going to grow considerably. We're going to launch the bar prep course in December and then take it to its next stage. That's kind of the plan for Legis Lab.
There you go, everybody. And I really encourage everybody to check it out as well. But if you, and this is going to be probably a little bit of a tough question, without sounding biased, is there any tool on Legis Lab that you would seriously encourage everybody to use?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you go into Legis Lab, the amount of resources on there for aspiring barristers that have been collated from across the web, which are all free, from all the videos collated from the ins of courts process, from loads of resources from chambers on what to expect at first and second round interview. There is a host of physical resources, there's a host of video resources, there are people running events here and there amongst themselves, and then there is, most importantly, opportunity to practice your advocacy. We were running debating, public speaking and mooting. We're changing it to do away with public speaking, and we are going to be hosting pupillage advocacy events, i.e. designed to just help you prepare for the pupillage interview. So that's kind of where it's shifting. There's loads of resources in the community for anyone who wants to just join and has, whether it's mooting, debating, public speaking, everything is there to kind of enhance your knowledge that's going to assist you on the road.
That's amazing. And just for everybody, this is the website, but I'll put it in the chat for everybody for at the end of the session, and I'll pop it on my Instagram as well. There's just so much here.
Fun fact, Legis, the reason why we've gone for Legis is because Legis, the Latin term, is a student or a student expert of law. And the whole premise is that we're helping aspiring barristers who are students. So it's the lab is the place to make the mistakes. The lab is the place to learn and grow. So that's kind of the concept.
That's amazing. And then there's me calling it the Legalist Lab. By the way, everybody, I was going around telling everyone you need to check out the Legalist Lab. How impressive. Right, well, thank you very much for that. So, yeah, I think then, to be honest, that website is so big. There's just so much to check out. I don't think that there's, from what I've just seen there, I don't think there'd be one, maybe there'd be one tool that would be better for somebody else, depending on what they want to focus on. But there's something there for everybody, for sure. So, yeah, everybody check that out. So, talking a little bit now, life at the criminal bar. Day to day, what can you be expected to do? So are you often in an office, or is it every single day?
You're in court most days.
Courts most days.
And
right.
You the development of a criminal barrister is that you go from doing first six, where you're just shadowing, typically in the Crown Court, and then you will have some level of shadowing in a magistrate's court to prepare you for your second six, where you're going to be on your feet in the mags doing lists to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you're going to graduate onto doing trials in the magistrates court. And then you're going to be in the Crown Court. Now, it's going to vary. Historically, it would be like the CPS has changed for the year when the year I finished, because people used to not go to the CPS or didn't want to go to the CPS because they would say, well, I can't do any Crown Court stuff. It's just I'm just being stuck in the mags. But they adapted to that feedback and they've changed. And for the first time in 20 years, they brought out a new role, which is the
That's so
Crown Advocate
interesting.
role. And that means that when you qualify, or even before, where you do second six, you can do everything in the Crown Court except jury trials. So
Wow, that's
it's
really, really interesting to know that, because I didn't have a clue about that.
yeah. So taking a staged approach, if you're not trying to rush through your career, like
Fair enough.
it's a good place to get, in the sense that you're going like some people want to be doing jury trials in their second six. So if that's the case, then you're not going to get that at the CBS. However, I'm almost 2 years at the CBS now, and I am still learning so much from the magistrates court that
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. And yes, I spent half my time in the Crown Court, but the exposure and the speed and the dealing with long lists and the variety and just the true advocacy, dealing with things on your feet in a very fast paced environment. You get to the Crown Court and it's like serenity. You're like, so
And
as a skill set training ground, I'm having gone through the process. I don't think everyone's different, right? Some people want to rush their career, some people want to get the experience as quick as possible. Whether you get it in 12 months or in 6 months, you're still going to be learning stuff from the magistrates court in 18 months, and I can guarantee you that.
yeah, well, I've got a really non-neutral face, and my face is just sheer horror there when you've just said that some people do want to do jury trials in their second six. I personally, I couldn't even envision doing that. But that leads me on to a question that I did actually have. In terms of then, I guess, professional development and growing your experience and knowledge expeditiously, is there a more important stage for you to learn more in terms of the two courts? So, for example, do you find that you learn a lot more at the magistrates, or you can get a lot more knowledge out of the magistrates versus the Crown?
Well,
Or
I think typically in the beginning, well, barristers will end up being predominantly in the Crown Court. Someone who's
yeah,
ex-year call will be going to the magistrates, but he's not spending the majority of his time there or her time there.
yeah,
In terms of the magistrates, there is so much to take from the magistrates court. It's the classic place where a barrister cuts his teeth. That expression is in the magistrates court. Is you are baptized in real fast-paced advocacy lists that you're not going to be exposed to in the Crown Court in the beginning before jury trials. When you're doing committal for sentences or a bail application, you may have one or two in the Crown Court. It can vary. I'm talking about at the junior end. Whereas when you're doing full lists in the magistrates court, that working, like that civil service behaviour, delivering at pace, that is very much what you're going to get in the magistrates court.
right. Thank you for that. That's really interesting. And in terms of your workload, then, so in terms of the lists that you're expected to go and prosecute in, in what advance notice do you get your workload?
It varies considerably, but generally I'm preparing cases for the next day, generally speaking.
So, for example, say
but
you've got a
they're
jury.
not necessarily given the next day, because you're dealing with the day before's cases, and just that's the way it is. So Sunday you're preparing for Monday you're preparing for Tuesday. You may know the list in advance, and if you've got a free time to prepare it, you may prepare it then. But generally, it differs from person to person. That's what ends up happening in terms of preparation.
And in terms of allocation, are there certain barristers, CPS barristers, that are allocated to a case that's maybe is going to trial? It's had its PTPH and it's ready to go. It's getting trial ready.
Yeah,
Will
like
it be?
CBS have full in-house barristers that do the entire ream spectrum, and it just depends because it's very difficult to say. The preparation that's done for the cases is subject to what the case needs. You're not going to be preparing a murder trial the day before, but
Yes,
you're not going to get to a murder trial until you are grade
thick
3
pin.
or 4, and you're not going to be getting to grade anytime soon once you qualify.
Yeah.
Even the rising stars will take time to get to that grade.
Yeah, and rightly so, because it's such a meticulous process that needs to
Yeah.
be followed correctly, of course, yeah, and I can understand that. And in terms of, so for, I know there's a couple of university students on here, and I'm not making any assumptions, but like I say often, at university, I didn't even know the difference between a solicitor and a barrister. So I'm just saying this just in case people don't know and feel maybe too embarrassed to mention it, because I at one point used to. In terms of chambers, so that's the self-employed bar. When barristers are tenants at chambers, they tend to get their work from, well, first of all, the chambers clerk will pull the work in from them, but also it will come from instructing solicitors and instructing solicitors firms. So I'm just going to ask you, Taz, who is your instructing solicitor, if that makes sense? How does
Well,
that work?
it doesn't work like that.
Right.
Because the CPS they brief the cases out.
Yeah.
So I'm essentially an in-house barrister for the CPS. So I get my briefs from CPS.
And does the CPS have solicitors as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can be quite often in court as well, can't they, with the barristers?
Yeah, so
Usually
Crown
behind
Prosecutor
us.
is a dual role for solicitors or barristers. Now, obviously, it's differing a little bit because they brought out the Crown Advocate Level 1, which tends to be fulfilled by barristers, and solicitors are Crown Prosecutors that go on to Senior Crown Prosecutors. Barristers go from Crown Advocates to Crown Advocate Level 2, and then 3 and 4 to match the grades.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense. I didn't realise that. So in terms of the grades that you're referring to, there's grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and it stops at 4, doesn't it?
That's my
And
understanding, yeah.
and with those grades, what's the main distinguishing features between each one? So obviously, of course, when you get to
The
grade
complexity of the cases that you're
cases,
taking on.
so at grade 1, you could be doing
Grade 1 don't do jury trials. So
so
you just do committal for sentences, bail, anything that's not I don't want to say non-contested because a
yeah.
bail application is contested, but it's everything excluding jury trials. Level 2, you'll do jury trials, and then 3 and 4 is about the complexity of the cases that you can take, the skills that you have to do those cases, the experience that you have to do those cases. You have to work up to it basically.
Yeah. Um, would you ever consider defending?
Um, I would never rule it out. I'd never rule it out. I just don't know at the moment. It's not something I'm looking to do at the moment.
And in terms of, are there any cases that have ever really stuck with you? And if so, how do you try and filter those out?
I think doing the job. Sorry, I'm just reading what someone's put in the comments.
Yes, I know. Sorry, I am going to ensure that those questions are asked to you towards the end, but I'm just conscious that I'm keeping you for hours.
No, it's all right. I'm just going to read it. Grade 1 can do bail applications, sentences, pleas, hearings, just not trials. But yeah, overall the comment in the group is grade 3 is more complex, sensitive, yes, and then obviously there's grade 4. So yeah, thanks for that, Jack. I think that's kind of how the structure works ish. And you were asking a question, it slipped my mind. What was the question that you'd asked?
Sorry, the question I asked was, in terms of cases, have you ever seen some that have really stuck with you, and how do you turn off from those cases?
Well, I think that's just, it's, I've been on the path to being a criminal barrister for a while, so it's the experience that I've gained along the way that's shaped me into who I am to do the job, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of personal, internal growth and development that's allows me to not take my work home with me. I'm not immune from it. There are cases that will slip through, but it's about having just good self-care routines. And I think that's what I took from when I finished the bar course. And going to the sauna 3 or 4 times a week, going for runs, just doing things which keep me on an even balance, even keel.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question in terms of relating to the CPS, in terms of when the CPS brief the cases and say, for example, on the indictment, it's um, say if there's an offence on the indictment and you're looking at it, and obviously you're bound as a barrister by ethics and whatnot, as everybody knows about. Are there ever times where you look at the indictment and just think, right, this is just going to be real difficult to pull a conviction?
That's tends to be what the management team do. They're not going to give you something that's way outside of your scope, and then if it is outside of your scope, then you'll raise it with them and they'll happily reallocate it to someone with more experience. In terms of every case, if there's a case that's charged, it's meeting the full code test, which means there's a realistic prospect of conviction. That's the first stage of that test, and it's in the public interest. So if the case is going ahead, both of those things have been met. So
Right.
ideally, we're not prosecuting any case that doesn't have a realistic prospect of conviction or isn't in the public interest.
Because I've witnessed cases before, and that's why I asked this question, because I was so interested to find out what the answer was, where the judge really was harsh on the prosecutor, on the Crown, and essentially said, go back to and that's why I asked about instructing solicitors. Go back to your instructing solicitor. Obviously, that was the wrong terminology. And say the indictment needs to change. And that's why I was shocked.
Sometimes it can happen. Sometimes it needs a reviewing lawyer, and that's at that case at that time it might be adjourned and it reconsidered for a review. So things can change with cases. They're always evolving, always changing. And new information's coming, new evidence is coming. So that can happen.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. So I've finished that part of the criminal bar now. Just got a couple of more questions, and then I will let you go. Sorry for keeping you so long. You're obviously just such an interesting person, so the conversation just went on and went on. But in terms of simplifying some of the most complex cases, how do you personally do it? Have you got a method to break down that level of the volume of reading? How do you do it? How do you tackle it?
Well, as you get more experience, you know what to look for and what to let go of. That's just a natural part of, in the beginning, you think everything's relevant, you think everything's important. And then as you get more experience and you know exactly what you're looking for. So that's part of it. And then the other part is information management, being able to store information in a way which enables you to access it very quickly and let go of it if you don't need it very quickly as well. So information management experience, they kind of play a big role in that.
Okay, and last couple of questions. First question is, you are incredibly humble, and I would just like to know, how do you keep that level of humility being a barrister? That might seem like a real silly question, but I've met some people along the way that have really lost that. And I'm just wondering how you personally keep it.
I think for me, it's just where I've come from. I'll never forget where I've come from. I'll never I'll never forget that what I have is a blessing, and that not everyone, whether in terms of just life generally, I know that a job isn't everything. My health is. I've been with people whose health completely deteriorated, and I've seen big egos vanish overnight when health kicks in, or actual other things in life happen. So I think for me, what keeps me grounded is A, where I've come from, B, my just perspective and growing a bit older and being around the world a bit and going traveling, coming back, and not letting the job define me. It doesn't define me. Wearing the wig and gown, it's something I do. I don't get sucked in to the ego of it all, and I think part of that is because I'm always, I'm at heart, I'm a people's person. I'm empathetic. That's kind of my history. That's how I've grown up. It's part of the reason why I came into it, and that will never change with me. I think I'll people change, they get older. I like to think people evolve and develop.
Yes.
But I think I do it, as I've said before, goes back to when you asked me, what do you do to kind of keep an even keel? If you see what this book is, there, so these are just the books here. So this is more of
Oh,
yeah. So
can you
it's
say that, please? Can you actually read that out?
it's the Bhagavad Gita, I think it is, or Bhagavad Gita, and essentially it's some people call it like a spiritual book, but it's kind of
Yeah,
it's the things that I read in my own time, and
that's
they
amazing.
kind of this one is mindfulness in drawings.
Drawing.
And a point being is that I'm very big into kind of
You're very in tune with yourself as well. And do you think the therapy definitely helped? Because I've got therapist Steve. I love Steve. Big up Steve. He's absolutely fantastic. He's literally like the best person ever. I'm obsessed with him, to be honest. Probably a bit unhealthy as well. Like constantly texting him like, "Hi Steve, this has happened." He's like, "Oh my god, can you wait until our session?" But yeah, I think therapy. I'm speaking from. I think it should be encouraged more. I tell all of
definitely.
my friends. It depending on everyone's got different perspectives of trauma, and everyone's got different perspectives of what they may think is the end of their world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think therapy is bad for anybody, even if they haven't gone through a huge trauma that they may class themselves. Still, therapy is really good for many other
It's like
things.
a language you learn to speak,
Yeah,
and learn to kind of understand what's coming up for you in moments and why and history. And I think going back to your question, like the books I try and read, and I remember when I was a young man, I'm still a young man, but a younger man, was The
yeah,
Power of Now. That was one of the first books I ever read, and that is very much about presence and ego and things like that. So, reading helps, I think, staying humble and just kind of being more aware, I'd say.
yeah, definitely. And let's just, if you can, pick one of the proudest moments that you've got so far in your career.
Putting the wig on my dad.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. When your dad got called a barrister on Daily Mail, like, come on, I
Yeah.
can't even get it right. I'd be like, suing.
Well, annoying
Oh,
they never changed it when I asked them to, but what can you
no,
do?
they
You
still
can't win
haven't.
them
I was
all.
like, come on, I'm trying to prep for a podcast here and I can't even like get the right information on. It makes me look like an idiot as well. Well, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I can't really thank you enough, to be honest.
Thanks for having me.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Likewise.
And I think the time that we've been on this for just shows. Thank you everybody for staying on as well. And let's just quickly go to the question boxes, the chat box, sorry, because I know that some questions are going to fly through now. So Taz, why did you choose a criminal bar? I think you have covered that throughout. But
Well,
if you
I've
could
always been super
sum it up.
interested and fascinated with crime.
Yeah.
It's always from an entertainment perspective. It's what I used to watch on TV when I was a kid. From an actual practical reality perspective, when I did my minis, it's what I enjoyed. It's what I was interested in. So all of those things really, and just then you've got that other aspect of contributing. If you want to do public service, you want to be a prosecutor, there's that aspect to it as well, keeping the community safe. And there's loads of reasons, but I think for me the main reason is where my interest was.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Jack, you said, "Hello, Taz. I'm a first year LLB student member of Middle Temp." By the way, first year LLB, and you're already on like tuning in. What the hell? Do you know what I mean? I better watch out because you'll be getting me for pupillage in a few years. So, a student member of Middle Temple, and I have just completed work experience with the CPS. Having said that, what would you advise me to do in order to foster a potential career as a Crown advocate?
Well, I would, if you've done an internship with them, see if you can apply for a job with them once you're in that position to, as a paralegal or a case assistant, and just work. If that's your goal and you want to be a Crown advocate, you can work your way up that way.
Yeah, that's thank you for that. Also, I don't know if you can say too much on this, but in terms of tips for a CPS final interview, maybe not some if you can't speak about the CPS, maybe just tips for a final interview in general.
So yeah, I can't speak about the CPS recruitment process.
Yeah,
I think generally for a final interview,
yeah,
you want to know your application inside out, and you want to have rehearsed and practiced your advocacy, because that should be tested really in a final interview. So just the basics. You need to know where you're applying, who they are, what they do, be on point with your advocacy, and just ensure that you know your application inside out, why you're applying there, and be flexible and don't take in the weight of the world in the final interview, because you'll end up just collapsing under anxiety and stress.
yeah. Okay, well, I think we've all took a lot of helpful tips from this one. Make sure that you keep yourself busy as well, and do the things that you enjoy and love still outside of work, so that you don't end up taking on too much. And of course, resilience, and keep on going. And if you ever feel like giving up, I would 100% reflect myself back on a Taz's story and have that as living proof never to give up. If anybody would like to ask any more questions, you've probably got about 3 seconds. No, I'm joking. But can everybody have permission to add you on LinkedIn, Taz,
Yeah,
if
no,
that's
of
okay? I'll follow
course.
you.
Just has
Yeah,
Aldeek.
yeah, brilliant. And obviously, big up the Legis Slab. I'm all for that one. Big up the Roving Room as well.
Well, I appreciate you promoting it.
I
It
know.
doesn't go amiss. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely
thanks
the
for the
Legis Lab.
support.
I'm not too happy about the Roving Room. No, I'm joking. Big up the Roving Room as well. And I will be joining 100%. I can't wait to see what you're going to bring for the Roving Room. When are you looking to
Well,
launch
look,
that?
we'll have to have a joint episode. Call to the bar
Yeah,
with the
that'll be
Roving Room.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. I'll
definitely.
promote it then. As long as
Yeah.
that's fine. When are you looking to have the Roving Room out,
So
just so everyone can keep an eye on time?
it's in the works at the moment. I think it's
Okay.
within the next 3 to 6 months
Okay,
is
perfect.
hopefully having our first episode.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I'll watch out.
fingers crossed. Yeah,
That
touch
gives
wood.
me a few months to try and yeah, that's fine. We'll good competition anyways.
I'll be coming to you for your list of judges who you
Yeah,
managed to
or
secure.
you can not a chance. Are you joking? The amount of emails I've sent off justice.gov.uk. No, hilarious. Well, thank you so much, Taz,
Thanks, man.
and thanks for being a total
Yeah,
inspiration to us
and
all.
no, likewise, amazing. Congratulations on the new podcast. When
Thank you
we
very
reached
much.
out, wanted to come and show support, and wish you all the best with it. And I know it'll be a success. Good name.
Yeah. Well, I hope that calls to the back. I'm going to copyright that actually, because there's some cheeky little sod will try and steal
You
it.
taking inspiration from me?
What calls to the bar?
No, the roving room.
Oh,
I trademarked it.
have you trademarked it? Smart
Yeah,
move, because someone will have that if they can. And
absolutely.
yeah, well, actually, I might have to take some.
Jump on it while you can.
Yeah, imagine if someone steals it, I'd be furious. But yeah, no, thank you ever so much,
No
and
worries.
have a great week. And
Well,
can't
thanks for
wait to
having
keep
me.
on watching you successfully flourish and grow.
No, and likewise.
Thank you so much.
Good to meet you in person. Thanks for having me on, and I wish you
Yeah,
all the success with everything. And if I can help in any way, if you need anything, just reach out. Let me know.
absolutely. Well, you'll regret saying that, because I'll be hammering your phone down. I'll be like, please, on LinkedIn. Well, thank you all so much for joining as well. And yeah, keep an eye out for the Instagram pages for the Legis Labs. I'll put the website on there for everyone to see as well.
Thanks, everyone. See you
Okay,
later. Have a
all
nice
right. Good night,
weekend.
everyone. Thank
Good
you so
night.
much.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.